Hey everyone, welcome. Looks like I have audio. I was a little concerned because I wasn't hearing anything on the phone live stream, but I think we got it. Yep, we have audio, so that's good. Welcome. It is Saturday afternoon, a little later start time today, 15 minutes, because I was out this morning since about 8:15, and I wasn't sure I was going to be back in time for a 12:15 start, but I was positive I would be back for a 12:30 start. So let me know how this audio is. Am I clipping? Is it too hot? I'll see if I can just lower it a little bit because I think I'm clipping a little according to the meters. So anyway, yeah, here we are. And welcome. So let's go to the chat and say hello, see who's all here. It looks like we have a good number of people here already. We have 9 people here and 7 likes. Wow, that's a good way to get off to a start. Appreciate it. So let's see. Keith stopped in earlier. Keith says, I have a consult when you're live today. I will have to watch later. Have a great weekend, Tony. Keith, you as well. Thanks for popping in and letting us know. Appreciate it. And I know there were 2 comments that came in last night. One from Jeremy, who happened to be first, technically, because his comment came in last night. And then Grish, last night as well. But then this morning, the comments were gone when I came up to the studio. So I don't know. I can't explain it. So Grish is back and he says, morning all. Morning, Grish. Happy to have you here. My dedicated streaming mug filled with iced coffee. And that's just me letting you know about the start time. We'll be back at 12:15 next week. Dick Rooney, welcome. Good afternoon. See you shortly. I haven't forgotten about you either. I will get that Sonos pricing to you in the next couple of days. Welcome, Joe. It's late afternoon stream. Not really. Just 15 minutes later. You lost me with this one. I have no idea. I have no idea what this is in relationship. And yes, I thought about that. I said, wow, okay, isn't that ironic? Use a thumbnail that's not real for a live stream. It's kind of an oxymoron. But I was playing around a little bit this week with caricatures on ChatGPT. Hello again, Grish. Bluey, welcome. Afternoon. How's the weather? It's been very wet here in the UK. The weather here is windy right now. In fact, let me see if I can pull up. Let me get this over here and see if I can pull up the outdoor cam. Now, it was windy before I came up. Maybe it settled down a little bit, but they said it's supposed to be windy all day. I'll pull the outdoor cam up and give you an idea. Hold on one sec. Got to get signed in. Yeah, the fan on the pergola was blowing pretty quickly, considering it's not powered right now. Let's see if it's still going. Well, I'll show you this angle. You're not actually seeing the fan, but you're seeing the shadow of the fan spinning down here on the actual wood decking. You can see that's just all being blown by the wind. So, and it was going actually pretty faster earlier. So we have a windy day, but it's roughly, I think it's about 40 some odd degrees. Let me double check on that. I'll let you know exactly what we have here. We have 45 degrees sunny No chance of rain or precipitation today, but windy. So yeah. So the weather's good. The snow we had last weekend, for those of you that watched the 12-hour live stream of the snow falling overnight, thank you. That did about 1,600 views quickly, but then it died after, like, the snow was over, obviously. So, but that's gone. That's gone. That lasted, by Tuesday it was gone. We had a couple of days of rain to follow, and it all melted away. So what we had here, we had, I would say, 4 to 5 inches, which wasn't really too bad. I know my buddy, which is about 2 miles from here, had 9 inches. I know my sister-in-law, who's about 45 minutes north of where we are here, had a foot. So it's crazy how it varied from place to place in such a little tiny localized area. So Joe says audio sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for the live bug. That's about the only playing around I did with H2R graphics. See? So that's one of the new features. I haven't done really anything else because I've been kind of consumed this week with a couple of different things. Still haven't resolved the issue I was having with trying to get SyncThing to work across from a Ugreen NAS to a Synology NAS running in Docker. I did come up with a workaround. It's not the greatest. I'll share the workaround with you later, but I want to show you the problem later I was having as we go through the stream. Let's see. Nancy Guthrie. Ha, ha, ha. OlympusNet, welcome. Good afternoon from Greece. Oh, happy to have you here. All the way from Greece. Welcome. Mr. Tim Tech, also here from the UK, and Bluey's here from the UK. Afternoon, everyone. Welcome. When is the next storm you are going to live stream? I don't anticipate any coming anytime soon. The next season we have coming up is hurricane season, which we get some doozies down here, although we've been lucky the last couple of years, but I'm going to try to prepare for it a little better. That was such a last minute, the snowstorm was such a last minute decision to just go live. But if with hurricane season coming, I might set it up where I have 3 cameras, the 2 in the back, 2 different angles of the back, and 1 in the front, where I could set them up to stream to the ATEM and then create a macro to get the ATEM to auto switch. So I could just set it and let it go and have it auto switch cams every, I don't know, 20 seconds, 25 seconds, that kind of thing. So I'll be more prepared for a hurricane. I was just kind of last minute kind of stream. Yeah, maybe I should just put the outdoor camera on and stream in snow since it's such a rarity. Jeremy says, I'm listening while driving back home. We'll be in chat more after I'm parked. Well, welcome, Jeremy. Don't rush home. Hope you had a good brunch with your family. Coldest day of the year here, and wind chill -20 tomorrow at 6 a.m. Wow, that's crazy. I saw that your area was going to be down. Yesterday they were saying -9. I didn't realize it was going to -20. And Alonzo, hello, welcome. How is your area, Alonzo, with the snow? Is it mostly melted, or you still have some hanging around? Irfan, hello, welcome from South Africa. Cool thumbnail for today's stream. Thank you, I appreciate that. Just playing around with ChatGPT and some caricature stuff, and I might keep that one for the live streams and just use the regular thumbnails for the actual recorded videos. But I'm glad you liked it. All right, so wow, 18 people here. Very, very cool. We do have a poll going today. The live poll says, are you currently running a virtualization cluster at your home or at work? So we have 17 votes on that already. I'll leave that up for a while. What I'm not sure of is in YouTube Studio, I'm running a poll, but they also give you like the option to start a Q&A. I wonder, I've never tried this, if I could start a Q&A while running a poll. It looks like I can. So I'm going to ask the question, if it lets me. And you guys could put this, I guess, in the comments. I guess that's how this works. If you are, if you answered yes, if you what platform are you running? I'm curious to see how this works. I've never done an actual Q&A. So let's see, let me be a little bit more specific. If you answered, even though the poll is about virtualization, if you answered yes to the poll, what virtualization platform are you running? Let's see what happens. Okay. Questions, and let's go back to the live chat. That's interesting. Okay, cool. All right. So yeah. So okay. So welcome again. Saturday afternoon at 12:15. Got a couple of things to share with you today. So after the Saturday overnight into Sunday snowstorm, we woke up Sunday morning to no internet. The network was down. I wasn't sure why. We didn't seem like we had a power outage. The digital clocks on the stove and the microwave were still set to the correct time, but I heard the UPS upstairs in the rack beeping like crazy. So I came up and I reset it. And got everything back up and running. Most of my Synology boxes, all of my Synology boxes, I should say, are set to auto reboot. You know, after a power outage, when they sense power again, they will. When power comes back, they'll boot back up. But I don't have the Ugreen set that way, and just because I just never thought to do it. But it's interesting that I didn't, because I discovered something with that, and that is when I turned the Ugreen NAS on, I suddenly dropped in the wattage on the UPS display, suddenly dropped from like 123, 124 down to 84. And then it was dropping more, and the beeping started. And then, lo and behold, the network shut down right in front of my eyes when I was standing there as I pressed the power button on the Ugreen. So I was like, oh, wow, that's really weird. That's never happened before, because that rack has been in that configuration for, God, I don't know, when I did the video on building that rack, the short, that's been, I'm going to say, at least 8 to 10 months running with the same gear in it. So I'm not sure what happened all of a sudden. So I reset the UPS a second time, powered everything back up, and everything came back up. The Synologies came back up. And then when I went to power up the Ugreen, it happened again. So I took the Ugreen out of the rack, and now it's on the workbench. It's operating fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong. I checked the disks. They passed tests, the diagnostics. It's been running since Sunday, since I moved it out to the workbench. And the rack has been up ever since. So not sure what changed to cause the Ugreen to bring the rack down. From a power standpoint is what I'm talking about. I'm not sure what changed. The battery on the UPS I changed about a year ago, and I know they're good for a couple of years, like 2 or 3 years. So I'm not sure. So that was interesting. So that was my start to the week. Yeah. So, and then I had a little bit of an anomaly last night with my Proxmox cluster, which I'll show you the cluster that I built this week. I thought I hosed the cluster, but that kind of worked itself out this morning. But I'll take you through that as well. All right, let's go back to the comments. Alonzo says most of the snow melted. Good, good, good. Joe's saying unraid. No, not me. Nope. It was vibe coded again. When I try to answer it, pops up Joe's chat instead of a dialog box. Alonzo is going to be prepared for next year, going to get a cordless snowblower. Good. Yeah, we've been thinking about not a snowblower because, I mean, it's very rare where we are that we get what we got. In fact, the news was saying it's the first time in 37 years that this side of North Carolina on the coast has gotten that accumulation of snow. So, but I am thinking about getting a cordless, battery operated or a battery powered handheld leaf blower. So. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure how the Q&A works. It's up there like a poll, but I guess there's no way to differentiate the answer to a Q&A, a chat Q&A from just a normal chat. So, in other words, the answer looks exactly like a regular chat. So that's, yeah. So I will keep my mind if I see different virtualization platforms pop up. I will keep that in mind. All right, let's see. Yeah, no, you can't answer through the dialog box. I realize that now. Like I said, this is the first time I'm using this feature. So, Retiree calf. Welcome. Minus 29 degrees Celsius here in Ottawa this morning. No snow blower. All done by hand. Wow. Wow. I shoveled the 4 or 5 inches in our driveway by hand last week. And that was heavy. Because underneath it was starting to melt down. So it got really heavy. But we also have an aggregate driveway, which those of you who don't know, they're kind of popular here in the South. I'm sure they are elsewhere. But it's like the exposed stone. So it's not just a flat poured concrete, but it's all little stones. So anyway, Alonzo purchased rack-mounted switch with a 16 copper 2.5 ports and 4 SFP plus ports. Cool. Nice. So, Alonzo, by the way, asked me to share a couple more things. So let me do that now while it's on my mind. I'll just read them out to you. So he has 2 Beryl AX, the GL-MT3000 pocket-sized Wi-Fi 6 travel routers. He's got 2 of those. He's looking for $65 each plus shipping. I was thinking about one of those myself, but I don't really know that I have a use, but I've been wanting to play around with something like that. So anyway, so he's got 2 of those, and he's got one Comet GL-RM1 remote with the ATX board. He says both are new, $70 plus shipping. I will put, if you're interested, I'm going to put the link to his last list of items for sale that I shared in previous streams. It's still up on my Google Drive shared document. And in that document, let me just type what this is. All right, in that document, you'll have his contact information, his email address, how to find him. Again, and I'm assuming that a lot of that stuff probably is still available, which is why I'm sharing that list. But keep in mind, in addition to that list, I didn't add them to that sheet because I just kind of saved it as a PDF. But in addition, he's got the two Beryl AX Wi-Fi 6 travel routers, $65 a piece. And he's got the Comet remote with the ATX board for $70 plus shipping. So there you go. Good. I did not want to forget that. Okay. All right. So I guess the first thing I wanted to go over was nothing earth-shattering, but I finally got around to putting together a comparison spec sheet on the, let me just get signed in, on the new Grandstream Pro switch that I received. I haven't even opened the box yet. It's still sitting in the box. That's how behind I am with that. But I put together a comparison spreadsheet of some of the features between that new switch and the previous old GWN 7806P that I had. That was the very loud switch. Why am I drawing a blank here? Okay, here we go. All right, give me 1 second. I'll get the spreadsheet up on the screen. And here we go. And let me make it bigger. And there, like that. All right. So, just a quick spreadsheet looking at the difference, because the original switch I had was the 7806P, and the switch they happened to send me by chance is the 7806PL Pro. So I wanted to look at the specs comparison and see what is it that makes this switch that I have in the box behind me so different that it's a Pro switch versus the other switch. So number of ports, both have 48 ports. Number of SFP ports, and I see I spelt that wrong. Okay. There we go. Number of SFP ports, both have 6. Max number of modules, single mode, 10 gig, 6, both same. Multi-mode, 10 gig, 6, both the same. RJ45, both the same, 10 gig, 3. Now, I could not find the specs on the original switch. At that point in time, Grandstream was not putting the specs for the CPU and the RAM on their data sheets like they are now with the new Pro switches. So I looked high and low for the CPU and RAM specs on the original GWN 7806P. Could not find them. But you see the new one has a dual-core MIPS interactive TM 1 gigahertz CPU and 512 memory. So I'm not sure in comparison to what the original had, but Grandstream is claiming that they've beefed up both the CPU and the memory on the new switch. So I'm going to just have to take their word for that. Number of PoE ports, both have 48. The max Total, the max PoE per port output, both have 30. So again, very similar. Total PoE output for both switches, 400. Again, the same. Non-blocking throughput, 108 gigabits per second, the same. Switching capability, 216 gigabits per second, the same. Stacking, the GWN 7806P does support stacking up to 4. The Pro supports stacking up to 8. Routing, there's a difference in the routing here. You can see 32 IP4, 32 IP6 static routes. Looks like 1,000 IP4 and 1,000 IP6 static routes on the new switch. Multicast, 256 IGMP MLD snooping groups versus 640 on the new switch. So, okay, so we're seeing some differences here. The old switch doesn't have any AV control. The new switch has a built-in SDVoE controller and something about Pro AV pending. So the Pro AV is pending. I believe the controller, the SDVoE controller, is there. It's, from what I read, I don't know a lot about it. From what I read, though, it's to control and route audio and video over IP in the switch. So that's pretty cool. I'm curious to see how that works. The old switch does not have AI diagnostics. The new one has, it says it's pending, so I guess that means it's coming in future updates. And let's see, the old one, number of fans 3, and that thing was loud. Curious to see with an extra fan in the 7806 PL Pro, if they've improved in any way or if it's just as loud or worse. QR code for easy management. The old one, no. The new one does have a QR code on the front. And then redundant power, the old no, and the new yes. So that's just a quick glance at some of the key differences between the two, since I have the same model, basically the same models in being 7806P and PL. I just was curious. I thought it would be cool to do a feature comparison. So eventually I'll break it out of the box and go to work on it. So, yeah. All right, back to the comments. Let's see. There's the link for Alonzo's gear for sale. Alonzo says he will accept offers. Cool. Guess you cannot ship to UK. Alonzo says, I have purchased new goodies, GLINet Wi-Fi 7 travel routers, Broom 3 VPN gateway, remote comment PoE. I kind of assumed I was going to hear that you had some new gear, that you were getting rid of that old gear. So older gear. I shouldn't say old, but older. Congratulations. Terrell, welcome. Grocery shopping. Just wanted to pop in and say hi. I will catch the stream when you'll catch the stream later. Thanks, Terrell. Enjoy grocery shopping. So, yeah. So, all right. So that's that. So I wanted to just go over some of the specs on the GWN switch. The other thing is, now I did the... I want to talk for a bit about the series I did on this guy here, on the actual door station. Put that over there like that. So I had fun with the door station. I learned quite a bit about this device through doing the learning series, Learn As I Go series. I was kind of hoping to do one more video in that series on the NFC capabilities and being able to unlock doors using NFC and key cards. However, that's not going to happen. Not unless I get an Android device anytime soon. So I'm going to show you the, let me get logged into the device. Apparently, and it's in the documentation. I would have to sift through the GrandStream documentation, but apparently the NFC support is only available actually to open up the doors, like to be able to walk up with a phone and open up the door with NFC, is only available on Android devices. It's not supported by iOS. Or it's not a feature that's built into the, let me clarify that, that's built into the GDS app for iOS, because iPhones can support NFS in general. So let me get signed in. All right. So that's the first thing. The first thing is I can't show you opening the door using a phone using NFS because I don't have an Android. The second thing is, let me just grab the card real quick. Can't activate the cards either right now, currently, without the Android device. So if I switch my screen over to here, and the screen I'm looking at, I'm in the UI for this device. I know you can't see the device. There we go. I'm in the UI for this device, and I'm on the user management page. And across the top here, this, if I click on this, it's going to enable swiping the cards. It's going to enable card entry, so, or card swipe. When you enable it, it's by default going to stay in that mode for 5 minutes unless I cancel it. And during that time it's in that mode, the device itself will not be able to unlock or lock doors. So they do have separate readers you can buy, especially if you're scanning a lot of cards. But if you're not, and you just have a few cards to scan in your organization, you can scan right on using the GDS 3725 as the device. So I'm going to say save. And then this is currently the card is in quick entry state, only swiping supported. So I could swipe the card and you should see it show up on the screen. Okay, so I swiped the card. So let me go in now and shut the feature off. And then I can go in. If I was able to then go ahead and activate the card now that it's been read into the software, then I can go into the card and actually go into the edit mode and assign it to a user and things like that. However, can't do that because CloudSync, let's see, it says it's available, but you see the little invalid exclamation point there. CloudSync is, they say you have to use CloudSync, or if cloud service is not available, what else does it say here? Press the CloudSync button or add the card again and have the administrator issue the card through, you can do it through GDMS portal. So if I go to the GDMS portal, I figured, okay, I don't have a GrandStream. And that's the other thing. I don't have an Android phone. If I had an Android phone, I could activate the card using the Android phone feature. But if I go into GDMS, let me just, got to get my code. Hold on. Copy. All right, let me just paste that in. Now, if I go into GDMS and I go into GDMS secure access. The only two ways I can do this is you can use the app, which I can't use the app on the iOS phone. It has to be an Android phone, or through secure web access, which is grayed out. It says coming soon. So all that said, basically, is I'm dead in the water as far as trying to set up and play with the NFC features and the card features of this device, unless I decide to go out and buy an Android phone. Which, no offense, Android users, I'm not about to do. Very happy with my iOS device. Android is a whole nother world. My sisters have Android. My brother-in-law has Android. And when they ask for help, I am completely like a fish out of water. Don't understand the way that works. I understand the way it works. It's just not something I want to learn how to navigate. All right, so where are we? Joe says, I got my 2 gig fiber yesterday, cheaper than 1 gig with the promo. Nice. How long is the promo? 1 year or 2? That's pretty cool. Yeah, you cannot ship outside the U.S., yet the costs are prohibitive. Tim and I were kidding around this week. He got one of the Pro switches too, and he's like, oh, I really was hoping to get this switch. And I was like, yeah, and I was really didn't want that many ports. I was hoping for a smaller switch, and we kicked around like, too bad we couldn't just swap, but it would be so cost prohibitive to ship each other these switches across the pond, especially with the weight of them. Also, finally getting my Jet KVM set up. Oh, cool. Very cool. You have to let me know how you like it. Grish is asking, Joe, does Dropbox accept inbound 2 gigabit per second? That's a good test. Yep. He says they accept 1. Alonzo is talking to Joe. I upgraded to 2 gig per month at $125 with 1 static IP. That's not horrible. I mean, I'm paying for 1 gig symmetrical with a static IP. I'm paying $74 a month right now for fiber with my one provider. The other provider, the backup provider, is also 1 gig symmetrical. No static IP, and they're $90 a month. They're a little bit more expensive. I might be just kicking that down to like $300 at some point. But the difference in cost is like minimal. That's how they get you to go for the higher amount, is because they make the differential between the lower speed. Like the difference is $10. So like for $10, why would I take 300 when I can have a gig? But I don't need a gig as a backup. What I don't like with that door station is that someone theoretically can take it apart, sort the connections, and unlock the door. I know with Unify that component is actually out of reach. Interesting perspective, interesting point. Can't argue, can't debate that. NFC. Did I say NFS? NFS is my storage share. NFC. Check out Frontier Fiber. Alonzo, nice. 79 for 2 years. Nice. I got rid of my static, going to switch everything to overlay networks. Interesting. I had Frontier and GoNet Speed. Right now I have GoNet Speed and Starlink. Interesting. Wow. 7 gig? Wow. Holy crap. Oh yeah, 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 absolutely. 100%. They'll be out there, evergreen. I'm not worried about the views on them at all. I did it more for me, for my own learning experience. I think, and my thought process was, if I'm going to go through the process and try to learn about the device, just turn around and share it. I wasn't expecting big things from the series at all, but I agree with you. Tim is saying to Joe, there's an ISP in my area here in the UK offering 2.3 gig for about 120 a month. Chris said I will be totally fine at 100 symmetrical as a backup. Yeah, I don't need a gig. I really don't, as a backup. The average bit rate is pretty low for a regular household, and most people will be fine with 100. Yeah, yep. And I tell my customers a similar thing when they're building their houses and we're wiring their houses for new construction. And they'll say to me, we're talking to the internet provider and they want to sell us a gig and this, that, and the other thing. And I kind of sit down with them and say, in all reality, I have a gig and I'm not coming close to saturating it, and I power user in a sense, to a degree. In other words, my home is probably more teched out, for lack of a better word, than their homes are ever going to be. And I tell them, like, if you're just streaming some 4K, doing some emails, surfing the web, a couple of mobile devices, you are probably fine with 250 is what I tell them. But then again, the price differential between 250, depending on the company, and 500 is like $4. So they go for the higher amount. Tim is saying I pay $53 for my UK ISP, one static at 1.2. That's a good price. That's a decent price. Real good price. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. 1.2, 2.3. It's like, where do they come up with these numbers? Like, how do they break them out like that? And Joe's asking, is UK usually not a round number? Alonzo says, I have a site-to-site VPN from South Carolina and New Jersey to gig speed resolve my streaming services. Very cool. Very, very cool. Yep. All right. Let's see. All right, so real quick, let me share this with you. So I did create a Proxmox cluster this week, a 2-node cluster, and then I had a Pi laying around, and I added the Raspberry Pi as a Q device, so I can always maintain quorum. And I'm just learning this, so forgive me if I don't explain it correctly, but in the Proxmox world, you have to have at least, well, let me say, again, like I said, if I'm not explaining this right, if you have 3 nodes and 1 node goes down, there's 2 other nodes that can determine and keep the cluster running, basically. If you only have 2 nodes and 1 node goes down, then it's hard to determine if the node that went down is really down, and it could mess things up, from what I understand. So I don't have a true 3-node cluster, but I have 3 votes, in the sense of that Pi is acting just for voting, so that if one of my 2 nodes go down, the other node that's up and the Pi can vote and decide whether or not that the node that went down is really truly down, and then do whatever it has to do. So I managed to get all that set up. And so right now I have got Let me just go full screen with this. So right now I have the two nodes. So I have the original node here, which is the old desktop tower, not the old tower, running the i7, 32 gig of RAM. And then down here I have node 2, which is that GMK Tech K10 NUC that I bought. So I moved the AdGuard Home Image, Home Assistant, and Nginx proxy server over to the NUC because it's an i9 processor, 32 gig, but it also has a 2.5 gig Ethernet port, so I'm plugged into a 2.5 gig port on the GrandStream switch. So I'm getting a little bit of faster speeds there and capacity. So I put the core services that I'm running on the newer machine. But I did run into a little bit of a hitch last night in the transfer process. A couple, I'd say, and I don't understand it. A couple of the machines went over no problem live. Image kind of hung up on me and then never finished the transfer or the migration, I should say. But then when it finally did, it wasn't pulling an IP address like you probably can't see here, but it is pulling the correct IP address on a different VLAN, which is how I have it set up in the data center under, I don't know, this is small, but under SDN, I have my zone set up, and then I have my VNet set up for my trusted network. So what was happening is the machines that are running on the trunk VLAN, when they migrated over to node 2, they were fine. They were running fine, but I noticed the machines that were pulling off of VLAN 20 were not pulling IP addresses. They were pulling 169 addresses. And I said, it can't be that I hosed the VMs. It was only after Image got stuck and borked the migration process that this started to happen. So I shut them down and I moved them in the off mode back to the original PVE, node 1, and they pulled the correct addresses. So the VLAN and the VNet and the zoning was working, just not working when the machines were on node 2. And I honestly, to this day, to this hour, I cannot tell you why that was. I went in and I deleted everything that I had created here under SDN and zones and VNets and recreated it. And still I had the same issue where the machines were only pulling addresses in the VLAN 20 on node 1, but not if I put them over to node 2. So I came upstairs, I rebooted. First off, I did just a restart or a reboot of node 2 or PVE2, and that didn't fix the problem. Then, like I said, I removed everything I did under SDN and recreated all that stuff again. That didn't fix the problem. I even thinking I had hosed the VMs, I tried doing a restore of the image VM, and after the restore was done, that didn't fix the problem. So I realized it wasn't the VMs, and it was something, I hosed something in the cluster, and I didn't know what it was. And I was about to ask for help today with that, and I tried a different switch port, and that didn't help. Like, in other words, I said, well, maybe maybe I need to reboot the switch. Maybe the port itself just kind of went haywire. That didn't help. So I left it overnight. I left it overnight thinking like, okay, this is going to be something that I might alone, I'm not going to be able to figure it out. So I'm going to ask for help today. This morning before I went out, I said to myself, let me try one other thing. And all I did was power down the second node and unplug the Ethernet cable from the back of the node and the wall, so from the port on the wall, and I just let everything sit for about 5 minutes, and then I plugged everything back in and powered up the node, and then I started the image machine, and like to my surprise, all of a sudden, boom, there it pulled the address it was supposed to pull. So I was like, go figure. So I don't know what happened during the original migration process for that one VM. It seemed like it borked things, and it did for a while, but it seemed to kind of resolve itself after I did what I just explained. So I don't know. Anyway, back to the comments. Alonzo says with the VPN, his sons, I guess they're in New Jersey, use the NASPlex, no buffering. Very cool. Grish says, I used 1.19 terabytes last month. That's an average of 3.6 megabits per second for the entire month. Joe's saying, I want 10 gig WAN. I think your box can handle 10 gig WAN, correct? You have a 10 gig WAN port? Haven't seen that yet. Alonzo says to Joe, yes, I will buy 5 to 10 gig. Most are, Joe, but mine, Tim is saying most are, but mine seems to get to offer part numbers for some reason. Interesting. Oh yeah, interesting on the Pi. Yeah, let me just show you that real quick. Let me just go back to that screen. So if I go to, I guess I can go to either node. If I go to shell, and I bring up the status of the cluster. Again, I apologize for it being small, but you can see here I have 2 nodes. I have Core 8. It's expecting 3 votes. The highest expected is 3. The total number of votes that I have is 3. You need 2 for quorum. And then down here, if you look under membership information, here's PVE1 with 1 vote. Here's PVE2 with 2 votes, the second vote. And then here's the Q device with the 3rd vote. So, yeah, if I were to pull, let's say PVE1 or the original PVE offline, we would still have quorum under HA. So I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with it that I didn't have to just set up a third get another device and set up a third Proxmox node. Now, that leads me to a question for all you gurus, as I call you guys, because I'm certainly not when it comes to this stuff, but I know I'm in good company. At first I thought, or a couple weeks ago, I thought, well, once I get the cluster set up and I get Q device added to the cluster, so I know I'm good in case one of the nodes go down. Then I thought, well, maybe I approached Proxmox very systematically. I started with the 1 node, then I, set that 1 node up with the NFS share, and then as I kept learning more, I set up Proxmox backup server on the TerraMaster. So I have the 2 backups happening overnight, one to the NFS share, one to the PBS. And then I systematically approached it with adding the second node, which is why I bought the Nook. And then realizing after researching and watching videos that if I do the second node, it's not a good idea to just leave it with the 2 nodes, but I need to add that third device of some sort so that I can have quorum. And so I'm doing it all systematically. And I thought as part of the process, as I moved along, the next step would be installing Proxmox Data Center Manager. But I think I'm going to pull the plug on that because for what I have, the little 2-node cluster that I have with a Q device, I have access, as you guys all know, I have access to both nodes right here in one window, right? There's node 1, there's node 2. Realistically, what do I need Data Center Manager for? I'm not running enterprise. I'm not running, multiple nodes. I'm not running multiple clusters. I'm not running clusters across the internet. This is my home. This is my lab. This is just 2 nodes. I think I'm going to stick with it just the way it is. So unless, like I said, I throw it out to all of you who are doing this for a whole hell of a lot longer than I am, unless there's an advantage that you can share with me or enlighten me on as to why I would need to use Proxmox Data Center Manager for the setup that I have here, I would be interested. Pi has gone up significantly recently with the rainy storage. The RAM, I thought I saw rainy, RAM storage price increases. Yeah, I happen to have that Pi from years ago. In fact, it was the Pi I used when I built the Nginx RTMP server. And it's just been laying around. So that was my choice of the use for the Q device. Yeah, Tim, it is a lot of VMs. So the main ones I run: AdGuard Home, Home Assistant, and Nginx Proxy Server. Or it really is called Nginx Proxy Manager is the correct name. And Image, those are all on the Nook. It's got the faster NIC. I left Bento up here because, for what Bento is, and by the way, I've been using Bento a lot, especially getting ready for tax season, having to edit PDFs and crop PDFs and annotate on PDFs. It's becoming a lifesaver. Great tool. I don't know why I didn't know about it sooner. But I'm leaving it on node 1, the original node. All these other VMs here are just for my learning purposes. I wanted to learn more about Zorin. I wanted to learn more about Kali and more about, Perl Linux and Rhino Linux. So I even have, right here's your Windows 11 Pro ISO image that you made available for folks to download. So this is going to kind of be my learning node and my, aside from Bento, my production, I guess, quote, for lack of a better word, production node will be on the Nook. And then the, my learning node will be node 1. That was the other thing too. The question I had, well, and Grish, thank you. You answered it last week. And yes, in fact, that was true regarding the, once I added once I built the cluster, it would add the NFS storage on the Ugreen NAS after giving the NAS the permission to receive the request coming from the second node, given the node permissions on the NFS share. But I did have to add PBS Proxmox backup server to the second node. It showed up, but it really wasn't there, if that makes any sense. I had to actually, join it to the second node. So now everything seems to be working just fine, except for that little blip that I had last night, and I'm not sure why, because most of the migrations went pretty smoothly. Tony, are you working on Proxmox virtually on your laptop downstairs, or have you been warming the chair in the studio all month? A little bit of both. Probably the configuration side of things up here, because I got to physically get the Pi, physically, move the node to where I want it to be, things like that. So the configuration side of things, the initial configuration, yes, but I've been doing a lot down on the couch from my laptop, like migrating machines back and forth, stuff like that. So, yep. Joe says he's got two 10 gig WAN ports, but I don't have a 10 gig network switch. That will be way down the road. Two 10 gig WAN ports, but I don't have a 10 gig network switch. You're still using Unify, right, Joe? I have the 10 gig aggregation switch with the 8 ports. If you're interested, it's yours. It even comes with one 10 gig transceiver that I can't get out, but it works. We can see, oh, good. Alonzo says, my router has two SFP plus WAN ports. Cool. Speak for you. Oh, you mean you're not on the 65-inch TV today? On your recliner? Under a warm blanket on this cold day? Alonzo says, my core switch has 12 10 gig ports. Cool. He also says, I have two HP mini PCs for Proxmox. Need to find the time to set up. Do I need a third for Quorum? Will a Pi? Yes, a Pi. That's in fact the model I have. So yes, the Pi 3B Plus will work. And it's a pretty straight, simple install too. You just got to add CoroSync to the Pi. You could just run Raspberry Pi Lite, and then, one or few command line commands to get CoroSync installed, and then you just add to each of the nodes. It's Google it. It's amazing what comes up out there. So yes, the Pi will definitely work for your Q device, and then you don't need a true third node that's running Proxmox. Listen to me. I can't believe I'm talking about this. Whoever thunk. Okay. Let's see. Let's go over to weekly poll, because then I want to talk about the sync thing issue now I've been having, and I actually want to show it to you and show you what I've done and show you how I've tried to overcome it. So let's just go through the polls real quick. There should be only 3 if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. I know there's a lot of comments on them this week. So there's one, there's 3 days ago, there's 8 days ago. Okay. So this was last Saturday's that had just come out. 136 votes. What do you rely on for endpoint security in the home? Paid security, 18%. Built-in OS protection, 31%. Built-in firewall protection, 44%. And not worried about this, 7% of the people. Let's see what some of the comments on this were. The official original Chad says, it's bonkers to me. How many people think education training, firewalls, and routers are endpoint protection? This was enlightening. Great poll. Well, thank you. George Caballero says, I have pfSense, Next NDNS, and Bitdefender in phones and Windows computers, and in my Linux computers, the firewall. John Hanley says, to add, I don't visit sites that are questionable. I have virtual machine for that purpose. On reboot, the VM starts at the preset configuration, yada, yada, yada. Justin Rutledge, UDM Pro with GeoIP filtering, Next DNS on all endpoints, Bitdefender, user education and training. Grish says, I'm concerned that a lot of people think a firewall can stop threats. Not really. Most traffic nowadays is TLS on port 443, which if you block, pretty much you can't use the internet. Even with deep packet inspection, it's not possible to block all threats. Best to first focus on endpoint security and use zero trust ways of thinking. And Alonzo says, education on what not to do. I do not use third-party antivirus or malware. So I really like doing these polls for the simple fact that I personally find it very interesting to see what others do and the conversation that it strikes up. All right, so we got 119 votes on Wednesday's poll. I skipped Monday because it was the beginning of the month, and I forgot that I had only had polls going through January. So, for February, I limited them to, instead of going every other day, I just went Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. So I know each stream I have 3 polls to actually review and not like searching back for which ones did we do. All right, 119 votes. What officially makes a home lab? A server rack, 10%, running Proxmox or some other virtualization solution, which reminds me, we need to look at the poll and probably end it. 18%, self-hosting services, 64%, interesting. I don't have a home lab, 8%. And then the comments, it said there were 4 comments, but they don't seem to be there. Okay. And the last one. This one had some interesting comments, and yes, and I've said this, and I agree with Jeremy. I think Jeremy was one who commented, wished that YouTube would give you more than 4 options for answers, but can't include everything, so try to generalize it. Your home lab lives on older repurposed gear, 21% said that. Mini PCs and Nooks, 28%. Home built devices, 11%, and then all of the above. Interesting. 76 votes. Let's look at the comments on this. Jeremy says, great question. I do wish YouTube gave us a couple more options. Single board computers would make a great option as well. David says, my current home lab is a smorgasbord of various equipment right now. If I can hit the lottery for a decent amount, it would be something unbelievable. Terrell, my home lab is running on a Dell R710. Mr. Tim Tech says, my home lab is running various Ugreen NASs, GMK Tech mini PCs, Alta Labs router, Alta Labs switch, VMs, and multiple SM Lite SLZB coordinators. Although I'm stripping out the Alta Labs gear and hope to replace it with Grandstream gear like what I use in my home network. It's interesting. When I saw that comment, Tim, I was going to ask you about running the multiple Zigbee coordinators because, like in the situation I have here, I have the one SLZB coordinator downstairs, and it's actually in a cabinet under my TV in the living room, and it has no problem reaching the devices on the first floor, but I do have one of the smart plugs up here, and it was struggling to get the signal. It was very sporadic. So for right now, I have one of the smart plugs is just being unused, and I have it positioned right outside the office door. And it seems to be making enough of a mesh network between the coordinator and the one back here that this one's been quite stable ever since doing that. So again, being new to Home Lab and Zigbee and all that stuff, not Home Lab, Home Assistant and Zigbee, I'm assuming the whole idea of the Zigbee devices is to create that mesh network. And that, I guess my question is, that also holds true with multiple coordinators. So I could put a second coordinator, I guess, is in the studio here if I wanted to, and it wouldn't interfere or just become part of the mesh. Yes, no. So let me know what what your take is on that, or anybody really who's using Zigbee on Home Assistant. All right, and Good Citizen 573 says, none of the above started out that way. After 15 years in IT, I saved up and have a fairly overkill home lab, 10 gig throughout the house, maybe overkill but fairly future-proof. Really wasn't all that bad, but time and labor to run the wires was tedious, but well worth it once complete. Every room in the house has 3 Ethernet ports, 2 different single jacks on walls, outlet height, and all rooms have one on the ceiling for future AP needs as well. All do it yourself, ran keystones to the patch panels. Old house, nothing was easy. I'm sure he's going to say easy, but patience paid off in the end. Probably $8K total for everything, including tools, cables, wall jacks, equipment, racks, and repairs to the home. Wow. Again, like, I just love hearing what people are sharing. And yeah, that should have been the last post. So yep. We'll take a look back at the comments. Let's see. Thank you regarding the aggregation switch. I think I'm good for now. Maybe someday when I get 10 gig WAN. Haha. Anytime. It's here. It's not doing anything. And Alonzo says, great, I have plenty of Pi 3B plus. Yep, no issues whatsoever. It's interesting you say Google it. I don't even think to Google anymore. Every question I have goes to ChatGPT. I've been using ChatGPT quite a bit lately. In fact, I'll share, once I go through the sync thing issue I'm having with the Synology, I'll share Google, I was going to say Google again, ChatGPT's response to why I can't get it to work. What's the STS update? Which streaming platform? To be honest, I haven't focused on that at all this week, but like right now where it stands, if you asked me right now, I would probably say I'm going with Talk Studio and buying the YOLO Cam S3. If I was, like, someone was holding a gun to my head saying, make a decision now on the platform and the camera, that's probably the route I would go. I realize the S3 doesn't have the pan tilt zoom like the Insta360 Link and the new ones and whatever, but for what Les is doing, he doesn't need to have the pan tilt zoom. So I think I'm going to go with the YOLO Cam S3 and Talk Studio. Alonzo says, I did not use ChatGPT. Google Gemini is working great. Cool. I have PC we'll use to run language model studio. Try local LLM. How many people use IDS, IPS? I think I have that turned on my GCC. Take a quick look. Let's see. Yeah, I have it turned on. I have three options, obviously. Notify and block, or take no action. And I have it set to notify and block, and then I have the security protection level set to custom, and then I just pick and choose the different categories. So, and then there are logs in the security section that not generating any logs, I guess, which is a good thing. I do have GeoIP filtering on, and I'm blocking a couple different countries. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, the amount of the logs on that. It's interesting how many attempts to hit a network, just even like a simple home network like this, there are. So actually, let's look at the poll too. And before I forget, now you're going to laugh, but here's a random thing before I forget. And it has nothing to do with technology whatsoever, but I thought of this before I came up. I was looking for like a little snack to bring up, and it made me think of this dessert that I had on New Year's Eve. And if I shared this already, people, with you, I'm sorry that you're hearing it again. And for those of you who are here and didn't hear it, I don't remember if I shared it. I probably did. But a very creamy cheesecake with a nice, like, crust sprinkled with strawberry Pop Rocks all on top and the sides of the creamy part of the cheesecake. Oh my God, that is to die for. The chef who came up with the idea at the restaurant where we were said he loved Pop Rocks as a kid, and he just got the idea to sprinkle it on the cheesecake. Strawberry Pop Rocks sprinkled on top of a very creamy type cheesecake with the nice crust. Oh my God. Wow. I know, random. But anyway, back to the comments. Oh, I was going to do the poll. Let's look at the poll. All right, so we got 25 votes on the poll. Are you currently running a virtualization cluster at home or at work? Wow. Wow. 32%, only 32% said yes. 68% said no. Wow. Okay, well, we're going to end the poll. I really thought the teeter-totter was going to be the other way around. Wow. Okay. And then we only got one answer to the question. If you are running, if you answered yes to the poll, what virtualization platform are you running? So I'm going to end the question. I mean, honestly, if you want to still tell me in the chat, go right ahead, because honestly, there's no difference. I can't differentiate an answer to the Q&A versus just a regular chat message. So I have been testing local LLM with LM Studio. It's pretty cool. Nice. Alonzo says, I use IDS configured on the router. Yes. And Dave is asking Joe what hardware he's testing the LM Studio. He says, my M3 Pro, MacBook Pro. How much RAM? 18 gig of RAM, which has been limiting, but Apple does so good at swap and managing resources. Even when I try to crash it, it won't. Next Mac will have more RAM. Yeah, what do I have on this thing? I think I have 64, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 64. I don't think I would buy, well, maybe a laptop is different, but I don't think I would buy a desktop with less than 64 in this day and age. This Mac Studio has, I was hemming and hawing about spending the money at the time when I did. But it's probably one of the best investments computer-wise that I've made. Of all the computers I've ever owned in my lifetime, this Mac Studio was the best investment I ever made. And it's still a workhorse all these years later. Tim is answering my question regarding the Zigbee and the coordinator meshing. The best way to do it, that's the best way to do it with meshing. Some say multiple coordinators are not reliable. I plan on looking into testing multiple coordinators to see how reliable it is. We'll keep you posted. Yeah, no, thank you. I look forward to that. I wasn't sure if a second coordinator up here would just become part of the meshing network or if it would try to create its own and conflict. I don't know enough about the Zigbee protocol to know, so that's why for right now I just have one of the smart plugs that I'm not using, just kind of dedicated to being a repeater in the mesh network, so that the ones up here work. And if I want to add any more up here right now, I know I'm good to go. So he says the multi coordinators I have are on separate HA. Oh, okay, on separate instances. Interesting. Cheesecake OS. Yeah, I mean, oh my God, and I don't know. I mean, if I don't even know if they still sell Pop Rocks today. Yeah, they do actually, because Lisa picked up a couple of packs after we had that dessert, just to bring home to tease. But if you haven't, as a kid, they were huge. Like as a kid in my generation, my era, they were huge. Very cool. Little sugar pieces that just like popped in your mouth. It was like such a fascinating experience back then as a kid. Jeremy says, I run LM Studio on my M1 Mac Mini and it's pretty quick, even only with 16 gig of RAM, which was the top config available when I got the machine. Cool. Jeremy, I tried, I think it was that I tried running that on this machine after I saw you do it on the live stream. I don't know if I still have it or if I uninstalled it. One of them, maybe it wasn't that one, but you had done a live stream, I would say about within the last 2 months, 6 weeks ago maybe, on a language learning model and a local one. And I got it installed. I was only able to download a text model. I couldn't get, it wouldn't load any of the other modules for some reason. It kept just getting hung. So I kind of like just gave up on it. I was like, so anything LLM, that's it. That's the one I was having issues with. As soon as I saw your, yep, anything LLM. Again, I don't think I still have it because I got frustrated with it. Let's see. Yeah, no, I just wiped it off the face of the earth. But let's see. GPT for all. I think Pop Rocks was called Moon Dust here in the UK. Possibly. Yeah, I mean, it's the same concept. I'm imagining moon dust, the popping in the mouth kind of deal. So, hold on 1 second, guys. As you notice, I've been drinking this large amount of iced coffee. I just want to head over to the restroom. So let me see if that comes up. I will be right back, and I will be sure to shut off the microphone. Okay, I'm back. Let's see. Try LM Studio. We'll have to check that out this week. Alonzo, I have an HP Z4 workstation. Will install 64 gig of RAM and two RTX 5000 GPUs. Should run LM Studio with no issues. I would imagine. I don't know what the requirement, like what the minimum requirement specs would be to run LM Studio. Not familiar with it. I'll have to do a little digging this week. Oh, okay. I don't know no, it was definitely anything LLM. I don't remember GPT for all, but then again, I sometimes don't catch all the streams. I mean, I try to rewatch every one of your guys' streams the next day, but hey, Jason, welcome. Yes, be right back. I'm back. Oh, brother. Yeah, you missed the intro, so yeah. All right. Okay, so as I mentioned last week, what I've been trying to do, I had a viewer ask me about a two-way sync solution. He's got a Ugreen. I believe he's got the Ugreen, and he's in one location, and his editor has the Synology. And again, I don't know which models of each device they have. He just basically said a Ugreen and a Synology. And I could have it the other way around. He could have the Synology and his editor could have the Ugreen. I don't know. And that's irrelevant. So what I've been trying to get working is sync thing between the two. So I have sync thing set up. Let me just get there. Okay. Let's go here. All right, so I have sync thing set up running in Docker on the Ugreen NAS, and if I go to gotta remember the IP. Okay. So I have it set up. Right now, I'm sharing a folder called My Stuff over to a Debian, a machine running Debian on a virtual machine in Synology, but that's not the way I want to do it. I want to do it, and it is working. So if I showed you in the My Stuff folder, where is it? I have two files, and if I go over to the DS 1525 plus, and I go to virtual machines. So I'm running Debian on a virtual machine on the Synology. If I connect to it, and I didn't allocate enough resources, this was just a test, so it might be a little sluggish. So if I go over to the file manager, and I go over to My Stuff, there you could see the two files in the My Stuff folder on the Debian machine running. on a virtual machine on Synology. But what I want to do on the Synology is I want to run it in Container Manager so that they could take advantage of the web GUI. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to set it up. I want to show you this and show you what I've been contending with and what I've tried to do to to fix it using Docker. So we'll set the path to sync thing. I'm going to create the Docker file, and I've got the compose file from Linux server.io. Where is it? Images, sync thing. Okay, I'll just steal this compose file for now, or use this compose file for now. It's the same compose file I have on the Ugrain running with a couple of modifications. I'll call this one Synology. I've done this enough times. I know my PUID is 1026. This is 100. My time zone is America / New York. Okay, so now here we're going to go like this. And then I'll just go grab the path to here. And we'll go here like this. And then I'll call this my stuff on the container side. And then I'll just comment this out for now. Okay. Everything else is okay. We'll say next. We'll say next. I'll start the project once it's created. Let it do its thing. Okay. Oh, look at this. Oh, I see what I did. Okay. Shit. Let's stop this and see if I can change it and recompile it. What did I do? What did I do? I forgot the slash there. Okay. Let's see if it'll rebuild it. Okay. Says it was successfully built. We'll see the containers running. Okay. So now, let me just minimize that. So now if I go to this is on, I keep forgetting, 80, there we go. Okay. So no, yeah, Synology, we'll just, I don't know why I'm doing this because it's not going to work. It's not like I can save it. And we'll make it dark mode. It should reload. There we go. Okay, so before I even tried to join this to the Ugrain, I'm just going to try to add its own local folder. And this is now running as a regular user. Stopped, and you're going to see the error message pop up eventually. There we go. Failed to create folder marker. Permission denied. Make directory my stuff .st folder permission denied. Okay, so it's running as the same user that the virtual machine is running on the Synology. And you can see here, I'm syncing no problem. But when I try to run it through Docker, and you're probably saying, well, that makes sense because everything's self-contained in the virtual machine. Just hold that thought. All right, so the only way I can get it to work, let me go back into the Synology, and let me go back to Container Manager. It was right there. I missed it. Let me stop the project. So I didn't even bother trying to join the Synology to the Ugreen. That part works. I can join and get the two machines to see each other over syncing. The problem is the permissions on the Synology. So let me go in and see if I can make the change here and see if it'll reconfigure itself, rebuild it. If I change the user to root, it bypasses everything and works. Let's see if it'll rebuild it. Fingers crossed. Sometimes it doesn't. There we go. Okay. And let's go back to sync thing on the Synology. And now you can see as the root user, the folder status changed from unshared. From stopped in the error message to unshared. Now, I want to remove this for a second. And let's grab, let me go over to the Ugreen. And let me grab the ID. Go back over to the Synology and say add remote. I don't care if you see this, it's all going to get blown away anyway. Ugreen. Okay, it should show up here with a status eventually of connected. I think if I'm not mistaken, I have to accept it, or it might just connect. I don't remember, but that will change. There we go. I do have to accept it. Add. Okay, so the Debian is still up to date. You'll see the sync thing on the Synology NAS. It eventually changed to connected. Okay, so it changed to connected. It's connected here on the Synology. So now, if I add that same folder, actually, no, I don't want to do that. Sorry. What I want to do is go back to, the Ugreen, and I want to share this folder now out to the Synology, as well as and the Debian. So we're going to say save. You see it says syncing here. And if we go back to the Synology, Ugreen wants to share my stuff. I'm going to add it. I'm going to put the folder path in. I want it to go to the My Stuff folder. Waiting to sync, syncing, and up to date. Now, if I go back to the Synology NAS and I go into the My Stuff folder, there they are. So this is what I've been trying to achieve, but not using root as the user on the Synology NAS. It just will not work with a regular user. even though I follow tutorials by Marius Hosting, and it's just not working. And yet, I tried, Jeremy had suggested, well, try running SyncThing as a VM on Synology. So what I showed you was running Debian 13 with the GNOME desktop. And in the GNOME desktop, I went to the applications or the software store, and they had a utility for SyncThing. I installed it, and it worked contained in the GNOME desktop. However, when I tried to do a headless install of Debian, well, I did a headless install of Debian as a virtual machine on the Synology, and then I followed a tutorial that I found online about installing SyncThing on a VM without Docker. The only way it worked is if I started the service in the command line as the root user. If I started the service in the command line as the non-privileged, as the Tony user, no go. So the workaround I have is, they could create a virtual machine with a desktop, and do it that way on the Synology, but that's too much of a workaround. That's too much concession in my mind. I just want them to be able to open a browser like I showed you here and go to the SyncThing interface and be done with it. So anyway, that's what I've been toying with now going on. This is the second week. And it's not even about helping the viewer anymore. Now it's about, I want to get to the bottom of it. It's about the principle now, Whether I reach out, whether I ever hear from that viewer again or not is irrelevant. It's just it should work. It should work. Oh, so, and I promise I'll go to the comments after this. So talking about ChatGPT, let me get logged in. I'll just read this to you. SyncThing questions and what I called my chat. So according to ChatGPT, I asked the question, I explained the situation, and I said, why is the Ugreen able to run SyncThing as a non-privileged user, but Synology is not able to? I have to be root. The difference comes down to how Synology, this is ChatGPT now, the difference comes down to how Synology enforces permissions on the Ugreen OS. How Synology's DSM enforces permissions versus how Ugreen OS Linux does, especially once Docker gets involved. The short version, Ugreen behaves like normal Linux, Synology does not. On Synology, shared folders are owned and governed by DSM, not just Linux. DSM adds an extra permission layer, ACLs, and internal services. A non-root Docker container often looks like it has access, but DSM silently blocks. So on the Ugreen, the Docker permissions have standard Linux permissions, UID, GID, matches, it works, no hidden ACL layer fighting you. So, and then I tried some of the suggestions that ChatGPT made, and to be honest with you, ChatGPT sometimes, the more you ask it, the more I find, the more off base it goes. So anyway, that said, if anyone out there has dealt with this or has a fix, that's beyond my own knowledge, please, I'd be happy to pay you, just because at this point, it's just a point of principle. If you want to spend, some time with me one-on-one, offline or whatever, like I said, I'd be happy to pay you for your time. But it's very, very frustrating. Joe says, Tony got me the best setup with Synology and Dropbox for my video business. Still working great. I am so happy to hear that, Joe. In fact, I just had somebody else comment this week on that ingest video saying like, wow, I wish I knew about this sooner. So I'm glad you're using it now for quite a while. So I'm glad it's been solid for you. In fact, I am now using CloudSync also to move files to Glacier Deep Archive. Cool. Did I hit 30K yet? I'm close. Probably by next week we will. By next week's stream. I am at 29,875. So we're getting there. Thank you for asking. I need to try something with Ugreen and QNAP. Alonzo says, aha! I knew it. Grish says, I can help fix all that. Thank you. If you would be kind enough, I would be, like I said, more than willing. Jeremy says, I wonder if there's a group that you need to add to your Tony user in order to make it work. Good question. Practical IT says, when running Docker on a headless server, you have to add your user to the Docker group in order to even run Docker PS command without including sudo. Interesting. Interesting. ChatGPT ran me down a rabbit hole of misinformation when trying to build FMMPEG from source. I remember that. And I even tried your suggestion, Jay, after hearing you on your stream one time. Tell it when you ask it a question. Also tell it. And if you don't know, that's okay. Rather than take me down, take me off the beaten path. And but it seems like if it gives you a response and the response doesn't work, and you go back and you tell it, yeah, thank you, but that did not work. It'll go, oh, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so then we'll do this. And the more you have that back and forth with ChatGPT, the worse it gets. Trust me. And Jay wants to know, Jay is asking Grish, what is the fix? So that's pretty much what I've been trying to work my head around, and I'm pissed in a sense at myself that I can't get around it, and I'm blaming my own. This is where I feel like my inexperience with Linux is coming into play, because I'm thinking about the number of hours. Now, I say I've been at it 2 weeks. Hasn't been a solid 2 weeks. I'd probably say I've spent 10 to 12 hours playing with this over a 2-week period, trying different things. And I feel like if my skills were that much more advanced with Linux command line, that it's probably a simple fix. My guess is I'm going to hear, just do this, add that, boom, and modify this file in this folder, in this, and that's where I fall short. So that's why I'm doing all this. That's why I've been diving into Proxmox and diving more into home lab stuff, because I want to be able to take a situation like this that I'm dealing with and be able to solve it, So I hear Claude may be better for text scripts and stuff. But anyway, yeah, so that's what's going on. Not a whole heck of a lot. Yes, yes. That's what I was talking about in the when I set it up as a headless VM on the Synology and I installed it. I installed Syncthing on Debian without Docker. Just I followed. I think it was Atlantic Labs. Their tutorial online. Yeah, I enabled it. I use system control and enabled the service as root, and that would work. If I enabled the service as the user Tony Smeraldi, so it would just drop. It would just the UI would go away. It's like because I would have the service running as root. I'd be on the page. The syncing would work between the two, no problem. Then I would go in and modify the system control from root to user to the Tony Smeraldi user, and all of a sudden I would see the UI in front of me just go like page can't load. Very, very bizarre. So, and that is that. But now that's what I've been talking about. I know that's like hard to like communicate in a group, in a group signal chat. Cause like, you're like, wow, what's he talking about? Well, now you see it, right? So, thank you for letting me show you that. And Grish, like I said, if you're still out there and you, want to help me, at this point, it's just for me. I want to learn it. I want to learn what part or piece I'm missing. So, anybody else have anything earth-shattering that they want to share? Yes. I ran it as I forget the whole command, sudo system control enable Syncthing at tonysmeraldi.service, I believe was the command, as opposed to Syncthing at root.service. So, I appreciate that, Grish. I really, really do. And like I said, it's probably something simple. I hope it's just a configuration that I'm missing. But yeah. So, all right. Well, Joe says Grish never runs out of credits. So, anyway, that's all I got. That's all I have today. So, we're at an hour and 56 minutes. If anybody has anything else, I'd be happy to chat with you. But that's about all I have to share. Tim, I'm looking forward to your testing of the two coordinators. Hopefully you'll be able to test them on the same Home Assistant instance. That would be cool, but don't do it just for me. Let's see. Again, the link to Alonzo's stuff for sale is up earlier in the chat, and he's got the two Beryl AX GL MT3000 pocket-sized Wi-Fi 6 routers. Travel routers, $65 plus shipping. He's got two of those. He's got the Comet GL-RM1 remote with the ATX board. Both of those are new, $70 plus shipping. So go check out Alonzo's stuff. His contact information is in that document, that Google shared doc. I will check out LM Studio this week. And what else did I want to... There was something else. Was it... Let me see. Not sure what my video for the week is going to be, but I do have to get to some of the Grandstream gear that's sitting here. what was the last? I thought there was one more thing. Let me just take a quick look over here. Nope. Nope. I guess I got everything. Covered. I thought there was something else, but maybe not. Still got 12 people here, 19 likes. Thanks, everybody. Let's just run through the last slew of comments. Did I upgrade to the new version of H2R graphics? Yes, that's what's running the little live bug up in the upper right-hand corner. That's about all I did with it was play with the build your own section. I really need to spend some time with it. But again, like I said last week, I don't think I'm going to do much with it. But I did get that far. I was more consumed with the sync thing than anything else this week. Let's see, where am I? 30K. Okay. Then yeah, DSM is likely your problem. Is the video jumping for others? That's the first. No jumping here. Jeremy says, I did not see any jumping here. TVJ says, I'm switching back to FFmpeg for encoding once I build a new VM. My old one is 2 OS versions behind. I'm on my phone and the video has flipped out twice now. It's your Android phone. No, I'm just kidding. Whoa. Don't all attack me, you Android users. I don't know. When I usually watch my stream back either later in the day or the next day. I'll see if I get any flipping around. But yeah. Quick question. And then I will go. Jeremy, I'm throwing this out to Jeremy, Grish. It's a Proxmox question. Jay, anybody really out there with Proxmox experience? Because I don't know who's here that's quiet, that's not like, in the chat. In the beginning of the stream, or towards the beginning of the stream, I mentioned that I thought I had hosed the cluster when I was talking about the migration from node 1 to node 2. It wasn't pulling an IP address on the so-called VLAN that it was supposed to. I was just getting the 169 address. And I thought, okay, am I going to have to rebuild the cluster? Or am I going to have to rebuild everything from scratch, starting with the first node, Because I read online that once you cluster, if something goes wrong, you have to rebuild everything from scratch. Is that true? Or is there a way, like could I take the two nodes out of cluster mode, put them back into just single node mode, running as separate Proxmox nodes, and then just create a cluster, like go through the cluster process a second time? Grish is saying video is fine here. Mr. Tim Tech says fine here on Android tablet. At first glance, it sounds to me that the switch port is not trunked. Oh no, it's trunked. I confirmed that. I checked that. In fact, I tested it by plugging in a phone with a VLAN tag on it just to make sure, and the trunk was working fine. So I'm not sure. Did just unplugging all the cables from the back of the NUC reset I mean, that's been known to happen, so it's not an uncommon thing. But in any event, back to the question, if I had really hosed the cluster, what would be my next move? I guess that's a better way to, because I have all the VMs backed up. So would I have to rebuild both nodes from scratch and then form a new cluster? Or like what happens in that case where it didn't work itself out and it was effed? Yeah, I mentioned that. I showed that in the beginning. I'm using the Proxmox SDN with the zones and the VNets. Now, it's interesting that you say that about applying the VLAN tag on the NIC itself, because I did that, Grish. I went into the VM on, so I was using the image VM because I have so many copy of my photos on different, that I didn't care if like I lost image. I really, I know it sounds like I shouldn't, but I was willing to sacrifice image. So to your question, so I moved it over. It wouldn't grab the the IP from the correct VLAN it was supposed to. I would move it back. I would migrate it back to the first node, and it grabbed the correct IP on the correct VLAN. So then I moved it back to the second node where it wasn't pulling the correct IP, and I changed. I went into the hardware setting and I changed the from using the trusted VLAN to just assigning. I put it back on the bridge, the VMBR0, and just added the VLAN tag manually onto the machine's hardware setting, saved it, started up the machine, and it still did not pull. So at that point, I was thinking I hosed the NIC, the actual physical NIC on the NUC, the NIC on the NUC, the NIC on the NUC. But like I said, this morning I unplugged everything, let it sit for a while, plugged everything back in, and everything's working. Everything's working. So that one I'm kind of dazzled at, but to your point, I did try it both ways, and it just wasn't working. Grish says, if you can turn a Proxmox cluster back into single mode, but boy, that's a pain in the arse, because once you shut down the second node and then remove the Q device, yeah, quorum breaks, right. I'm not sure on that Proxmox question. Jeremy says, I had a cluster once, but ended up clearing everything and starting over with Proxmox Data Center Manager. I don't want to risk a cluster setup at home. Overkill for me. It's probably overkill for me, but again, going back to, it's part of the learning curve for me. It's a learning experience. The next thing I want to do is set up HA on the AdGuard Home and Nginx Proxy Manager VMs, so that if the one node that they're running on goes down, they'll automatically migrate over to the other node. That's my next, I think, exploration of Proxmox. Which makes etc PVE read-only. You have to set curl sync in local only, finish removing the Q device, then, oh wow, okay. You know, there was a point in time where I would have read this and been like, huh? Like what? I follow it. So PDM is a good solution for two node stuff to keep things safe. Well, there's an answer to the question I posed before, earlier. Why I'm just going to stay with the two nodes and the Q device, because I have access to both, to manage both nodes, under one window. So why would I want to go to Proxmox Data Center Manager? The little bit of reading and research I did on it, it said it's like for big corporate enterprises that are managing, like tons of clusters over, various physical locations or whatever. And like, that's not me here, right? So I figured the way I have it is good, but that's a good reason. Is the second host using VMBR0 as the nickname? Yes. Yes, sir. But I had set up the second node as far as the networking identical to the first node, down to the zones, the VNets, everything. So, all right. Well, Grish is saying it hasn't popped into H2R, but I see it over there. Oh, here it is. Large enterprises, XCP and G, Zen Orchestra would be a better management solution. Fair enough. All right. Well, on that note, folks, thank you for allowing me to enter your homes for the last hour and 40 minutes. I appreciate you all. Grish, I look forward to you reviewing the permissions issue I'm having with running Syncthing in Docker on the Synology NAS. I hope I demonstrated it enough visually for you to see the problem at hand. And everybody, thank you so much. Alonzo, good luck with selling the gear. And I look forward to coming back next week. We'll be back at regular time on Saturday at 12:15. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care.